I need to give a disclaimer for this video. If you're affiliated with this movie, you might want to turn this off now. That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Unseen, which is the second film directed by Vincent Shade, which was released theatrically and on VOD, courtesy of Gravitas Ventures on June 30th, 2023.
I wanted to watch this movie because I like RJ Mitte,
who is a star and producer. However, I wish I could unsee this film.
This is definitely going on my worst of list.
It is spectacularly bad. In fact, I think that the writer-director, I hope they never end up in a court custody case, because somebody could use this film as evidence as to how they can't navigate the world in a logical way.
I mean, it's just bad on a level that is unbelievable. The dialogue is atrocious. The story is ridiculous. It's super ambiguous in ways that are not interesting. There's a huge component that involves like a lawyer, and I don't think any lawyers were consulted in the making.
No, I don't think that. I think that had they even bothered to maybe study some law and order, or there's some kind of lingo about how actual lawyers speak, might have helped.
The story. A law student finds himself in a twisted web of murder and deceit brought on by a dark force from his past. It feels like the writer maybe heard an episode of Dateline and then thought, oh, let me inject an evil spirit in here.
Yeah.
And I don't understand the spirit's motivation.
And why now exactly? Does it matter that he's about to graduate from law school?
Well, let's tell the story. So it revolves around a law student named Tommy, played by RJ Mitte, and we're told that he's going to graduate law school in 2 weeks. And he's being pressured to get a job, which seems really odd. Like, shouldn't he be focusing on studying for the bar? But he is approached by someone, so basically headhunted, to interview at a firm called, I think, Jude and Teal.
Captain and Tennille, Jude and Teal.
So he goes, and we can get into how awkward that interview was, but he's offered the job. And immediately the woman, Jude.
Kristen Jude.
She says, I want you to work on a bunch of like unsolved cases so we can bring closure to these families. None of this shit made sense to me. And then he focuses on a hit and run case. So just to spoil the shit right away, we find out that he's being haunted by the spirit of a girl named Millie. Mm-hmm. This girl, Millie, he went to high school with her. Mm-hmm. And in high school, she was kind of an outcast and made fun of. And
she looked 30.
Everyone in the high school flashback looked too old.
Right.
They all look like the teachers. But Millie was killed in a hit and run accident. And we find out the person who hit her is Tommy's mom. Mm-hmm. Tommy's dad is a very, we're told, high-powered attorney.
We keep being told that. I see no evidence.
I see no evidence of such. But the dad covered it up. So the evil spirit is influencing someone. It's not clear to me who. I assumed it was Tommy.
It's Tommy because his mother takes the fall.
That's right. Mm-hmm. We find out that we find out that there are all these murders happening, and these murders are of people who are affiliated with her death, like the doctor who couldn't save her in the ER, which seems really unfair.
Yeah.
The mechanic who fixed the car. Mm-hmm. The bully
Bryce.
Yeah. Who was kind of the reason why she ran out into the street. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately the dad, Tommy's dad, who covered it up.
The sheriff as well.
Oh, and the sheriff who botched the investigation deliberately. So in the end, the mom... So up to then, Tommy's been the one killing everyone, but he doesn't know it because whenever he's possessed by the spirit, he has amnesia. But in the end, when everything's revealed, the spirit leaves his body to go into the mom's body, and the mom kills the dad.
She shanks him with a broken bottle.
In the neck. Mm-hmm. We can get into it, but we also find out that he's extremely he's verbally abusive and emotionally abusive, but also physically abusive to the wife.
And yet there's 3 children in there, 2 of whom could leave now and be fine paying rent on themselves.
Well, one of the children is the writer of the movie.
Oh, we need to get into
We
her.
need to get into this.
Another important character that we're neglecting is Olivia, who is the adopted daughter of Kristen Jude, who is also seeing visions of Mousy Millie and is the one that is the catalyst for, the one that leads Tommy to Jude and Teal.
Yes, and in the end, of course, the mom is arrested because the police were called before she gets possessed and kills her husband. She's in prison and she gets a visit from Jude, the mom of the dead girl,
Ms. Jude.
Who she killed.
Hey, Jude.
And if it's not enough, all this nonsense, we find out that the father of Millie is Tommy's dad.
And I called that shit right away.
I don't know why we needed that.
I don't either,
because
but
it's confusing. There's a lot of ambiguity in the movie as far as like motivation, which I think is funny because we watched the full end credits and there's a credit for like the score that says like Tommy's score, and the score is titled Moral Ambiguity.
Somebody's taking themselves very importantly. We don't need to know the name of your little score, sir. But the font is a good thing to bring up on both the opening and closing credits. We have a font problem. Font does matter and can make something look very cheap.
Well, the ending credits font is the basic, but then the opening title card font is like, not this.
And then we also get Lakefront Pictures after the film has started, right before the title credit. Why?
So I knew we were in trouble with the opening because we see a woman in bed get choked to death in like 30 seconds, and then it's like, the title, The Unseen. Okay.
After Lakefront Pictures. And then we learn that is Dr. Barbara, Dr. B, who lives down the street from the Olson family. We get a lot about the Olson family and Dan Olson. And then there's a therapist named Dr. Gunderson. I'm like, this feels very like it came right out of northern Minnesota with these last names. My God.
So we're told that, and we see that the dad, Dan, is pressuring Tommy a lot. He has a lot of expectations of him. He also seems disappointed in him.
He belittles him in class.
So then even before that, we're told like, well, your dad wants you to get a job. Like you need to secure a job before you graduate. I just thought like, why? Then we see him in class and his dad is a guest lecturer. That classroom scene was crazy. Why is the dad in there giving his son a hard time? These are 4th year law students. And one of these students makes fun of Tommy's disability.
Mm-hmm. I think it's Bryce. He calls out his nepotism for who his dad is.
And a woman.
And then a woman says he can't even walk right. Okay.
I mean, there'd be a lawsuit.
Oh, yeah.
I just can't believe that they wrote that in there. Then when he goes to interview with Jude and Teal is this black man who's eating donuts and singing like a happy dance.
He is very happy with those donuts. I haven't felt that way about a donut, although I don't really eat them, in a long time. And those didn't look like they should have had that kind of reaction. But
then
during the interview, though, she's like, oh, this would be perfect if we hire him. And then she's like, we have that unfinished business.
So Jude is the mother of the dead girl. So it's so ambiguous to me. Like, did she suspect that Tommy's family is responsible for the death of her daughter? If so, then why isn't she pursuing that in a more assertive way?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if she has evidence, why isn't she giving it to the police?
A more professional way. Also, her adoptive daughter, who she's hired at her firm, Olivia, is having visions and sobbing about them to another coworker. She's sobbing to this lady. And she's like, Jan, just listen to me. And Jan's like, I have deadlines.
That was crazy. It's terrible writing.
She goes, you've been saying this for weeks. And then the very next scene we see Olivia, she goes, I've learned to live with it. Nobody believes I have visions. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, the person who wrote the film is also in the film. She plays Tommy's sister aunt.
I was so confused.
I was very confused.
The makeup of this family. Jennifer A. Goodman is her name, right?
Yes.
So she stars also as Lindsay, who I couldn't... It took me a while to figure out, is she the dad's sister or is she R.J. Mitty's sister?
Because she looks to be... it's not being shady, but I thought she looked like the same age as the mom, but also the dad's name is Dan. Mm-hmm. So then she was saying dad or Dan, I couldn't tell. And the way she's talking to Tommy, it's like you don't act like a sister or an aunt.
No, and she apparently is a real estate agent, and
she talks about that like 3 times.
And always turn on the news. Shh, we're listening to the news. It's really bad.
The dialogue's really bad.
But it's like you wrote this role for yourself.
Yeah. I was trying to research what else the writer had done. She wrote and created like a 2-episode TV series, which I think the director of this film also worked on that series.
Vincent Shade.
But that series she wrote was about a female detective with autism.
Okay.
So it seems like she likes like crime and maybe like I don't know. It's I don't think she's qualified to write about these things.
No, and she also had a bit part in one episode of Better Call Saul, and I think that's a spin-off of Breaking Bad. So I don't know if that's how she got access to RJ Mitte, who I think is the best part of this movie.
I like him, and I think he does the best with the role. And I do like his presence on screen. Like, I like his acting style. I think he's handsome. Like, he's good on screen. But, oh my God.
He, compared to the others, he fares a little better. The mother, Meredith, played by Sue Cremin, she is kind of in that space cadet vein of someone like the mom in Troll 2. Or Frances Conroy, who does it on purpose.
Which is made worse because she's being abused, and we even get a scene with her showing off her bruises to, I guess, the audience.
To the camera.
Which is in the middle of the night, and she's awakened by Tommy doing something, so she goes to check on him and puts on a robe. And I don't know why she's wearing a robe when she's fully dressed underneath with a bra on. Mm-hmm. Don't know why the robe was needed. And then she goes to the bathroom to then show the audience all of her bruises. Yeah.
There's a scene, this is where we really realize how physically abusive Dan Olson is. He's out of whiskey. And she says, I'll get you more. And he goes, not this late. She goes, I go out late all the time when you're away. And he starts choking the hell out of her. And he
picks her up like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Twins. Like he just...
And he says, you're not going nowhere.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that because I thought none of the lawyers in this film speak like they graduated high school.
Right.
Well, but again, it's the writing.
I needed him to be like Laurence Olivier in Boys from Brazil. You're not going anywhere. But yeah, why the bad grammar? It doesn't make any sense.
Speaking of the dad, before that scene happens, there's a dinner scene where Tommy tells his dad that he got a job with a firm, and the dad is like chewing him out, saying like, why would you get a job with some like shit firm when I could have got you into like the best firms in town? Don't know what town they're in. But the dad is screaming at him, and so Tommy gets up to leave, and the dad goes, run to your room, loser. And then, of course, the mom is trying to tell the dad to calm down. And he yells at the table, when you make the money, you make the rules. Otherwise, sit there and eat your effing food. He's just going off.
So stupid.
And the acting is crunchy.
It's so stupid.
Okay.
There's a flashback scene, and this is where we meet Millie. She can't open her locker, and Tommy has to help her open her locker, and they're having small talk banter. And Bryce comes along.
All of whom look elderly to be in high school. Bryce has like a full like facial hair.
Bryce, who's about to take the job for Tommy's dad that he doesn't want himself. And he is just inordinately cruel to this girl and calls her Mousy Millie, and he tells Tommy not to help her. He's like, do you want us to start calling you Hoppy Tommy again?
How is Hoppy Tommy? I mean, is that a reference like his physical disability?
I don't know, or Mousy Millie.
And why is Mousy Millie the worst thing? I was called way worse yesterday, so I don't know. Speaking of Bryce, so when Bryce gets killed, he's in his apartment, and the killer shows up, which is Tommy. And Bryce very calmly says, what are you doing here? What are you doing with that knife?
No, he says, what are you going to do with that? And then we see that he's stabbed to death. And it's like, well, so somebody that's not supposed to be in your house suddenly shows up and you just say, what are you going to do with that?
Also, the odds of like all the coincidences, like the fact that this bully in high school ended up going to the same law school as Tommy and then is interviewing for the same job is too much. The scene where, so first of all, Olivia, Jude's like adopted daughter, the first few times she sees Tommy in the office, she like welcomes him.
Welcome to the team is used several times.
And then the first time Tommy starts working and Jude comes in, his boss, and he asks her what he's supposed to be doing. That scene was terrible.
She goes, give me witness statements from all the people in the cold case files and see me in my office. I'm here till 6.
She's like mumbling through all these things that it just felt like someone read like a law journal entry and just took out sentences and threw them into the script.
And then when he visits her, he's like, I found something interesting. And it's, of course, the case of Millie. And it's like, so you got one cold case file.
Olivia invites Tommy to lunch. And she's mumbling through some dialogue that makes no sense about her driving a Tesla and how there are 2 rules here. One is that you get to make your own hours and make your own lunch break.
Netflix.
And then that Sally and Kate's diner has the best cheese bread.
10 layers of cheese. There's lots of talk of cheese bread.
When we see that cheese bread, that thing looks so dry, didn't it?
It was dry and thin.
Dry and thin.
Mm-hmm. And I bet it was expensive. And they even cheers with cheese bread that they've bitten into, which seems really weird.
We need to take a moment to honor the real star of this movie. There is a character credited as prison guard number 1.
Oh my!
This actor's name is Nico El Santo Zavero.
I said, you need to look at this person's IMDb page.
I'm going to start putting up images of what he has on his IMDb page. There are 357 images, and his bio certainly was written by himself. And I'm just going to read one quote that he wrote as something for us to all consider. Theater is where it all begins. When you have slow days on film, go back to the theater to revive your mind. Always be productive in some way to keep the mind going. If the mind stops, then lose your craft. The point is to be aggressive and keep your mind moving and contribute in any way you can, regardless of how big or small the role is. I think
Is that AI?
It makes more sense in this movie. He's an inspiration.
There are also several quotes about films he was in. He was successfully on this film. Yeah.
He showed up on time to shoot this role.
Excuse me? Okay.
Oh gosh, getting back to Lindsay being the sister aunt, there's a situation where I'm so confused because there are 2 scenes where Tommy busts into a room looking for his younger sister, Callie.
And I don't know why.
And in both instances, she's in the room, but both times the rooms look different. Mm-hmm. And then the older sister aunt, Olivia, or Lindsay barges in like, what are you doing? And there's a sequence of dialogue like, because at that point, Tommy has like scratched his face. What happened to your face? Where is Callie? Why are you wearing my clothes? Did you F a mountain lion or something? Like, it's just a series of random questions. Whose room is this? And the second time they do this, Lindsay walks in and kicks Callie out of her own room to then talk to Tommy. And that's where we find out that Tommy's been leaving at night to do these killings. I also didn't understand, because we get a couple of like news.
There's some bad grammar, or some flubs, I should say, with the news anchor.
They're terrible, yeah. But I don't understand why the film is trying to create this like apocalyptic vibe outside of this situation. Because they even say it's like the purge. And then Lindsay, the real estate agent, talking about like it's a murder market out there.
That means you should be able to buy something cheap.
Because 3 people were killed?
Right. That
I don't understand.
But if they're all in the same block and your only listings are on that block, yeah, sure. But
more ambiguity is Lindsay tells her brother Tommy to go see a therapist. He goes, and the therapist who you mentioned, Dr.
Gunderson. I was expecting a Lundegaard to come out there.
He attempts to like kind of hypnotize him or something, because Tommy's saying I'm having bad dreams, and he starts to ask him questions like, tell me of a time when someone hurt you, when you hurt someone, and a time you felt safe. And we see a vision of Tommy, like one of Tommy's visions, and then all of a sudden the therapist is like, I can't treat you. I can't. And then that's the end of it.
Yeah, I wasn't clear about.
Then Tommy goes home and Googles the doctor. which he should have done before he visited the doctor. And we get like a front page article of the doctor attempting suicide. Mm-hmm. Okay, first of all, based on that initial scene with the therapist, I assumed that maybe he was the father of the dead girl, or that he attempted suicide because of the pain he felt over his lost kid. But neither of those things are resolved.
So he's kind of a red herring, I think. And then the way it's edited, my initial thought was, did the doctor try to kill himself right after his appointment with RJ Mitte? Because that's what it seems like. I don't know why.
Right. Then every time someone, I guess, is affected by the spirit girl Millie, they get like fish eyes.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Didn't really need that. You could have saved that money on script doctor.
We get a scene where poor Tommy is, I guess, doing lawyering, where he's like in his office. First of all, he has one of those crime scene boards with the strings that looks like chaos.
It's really bad. There's one very long string that goes all the way to the upper
Pluto.
right corner,
Like where?
to one little post-it. It's like you couldn't move that. It's a post-it. You could move it.
But him doing his lawyering is just him kind of like holding boxes and going through files and scratching his head while he has like Build-A-Blocks on his desk. They make him look real crazy. I did think that Jude, the lawyer lady boss, could play Nikki Whalen's mom in something.
Sure.
Oh my God. There's some Photoshop work specifically with like news articles and the way Tommy finds out that Jude, his boss, is affiliated with Millie, the dead girl, is that he goes into his boss's office and sees a portrait of the two together that looked like some Photoshop I did in high school in 1996. It looks really bad. And then the newspaper articles where they're Photoshopping, I mean, it is terrible. Mm-hmm. Beyond terrible. Yes. You could do a better job with like an app on like you could do a better job with like...
I think that's the thing in this day and age. You could do better without a lot of resources.
Right.
Including the use of your font.
The scene where, because we get explanation as to why each person was killed, and when we see that the sheriff was killed, it's because the dad, Dan, bribed him. And so when they're interviewing one of the witnesses, she says, oh, a black Escalade hit the girl. But then immediately the sheriff comes in and goes, I'll take over. And right in front of the girl, like as close as we are, with the sheet of paper right in front of her, he erases black Escalade and goes, oh, you said a black Escalade? And he writes down white sedan. Mm-hmm. That was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Why didn't he wait until at least that girl got up and left?
For dramatic effect, I guess.
Oh my God. So many notes.
You did take a lot of notes. I couldn't wait for this to be done.
Why isn't Millie haunting the mom? Why is she haunting Tommy? Tommy didn't kill her. And Tommy didn't not try to get help. Tommy immediately ran to his dad and said something happened to her, and the dad was like, I'm going to cover it up. Mm-hmm. She should be haunting the mom.
And a lot sooner. I don't did she have
right.
Did she have to wait in limbo until she was out processed and then she could come do this? Because it doesn't make any sense why this is happening right now.
The film is 100 minutes. I think it's too long.
That's egregious for how stupid it is.
Because towards the end, there's a scene after everything's settled and the mom's in prison. Tommy visits his younger sister, Callie, at like a coffee shop.
To give her some paperwork. Lindsay doesn't want to see him anymore, and he doesn't want to see. He's saying goodbye to Callie forever. Lindsay's not ready to see.
Olivia's outside waiting for him. It was so weird. And then he's giving her he's like, here's like the house and the accounts, which is like a sheet of paper and one key in a manila envelope. Mm-hmm. But wasn't this girl living in that house? Does she already have keys?
Right.
What is he doing?
I don't know.
And then he tells her, this is goodbye. I can never see you again. Because everyone I care about is getting he says he's like an evil. He's cursed. He's cursed. That didn't make any sense.
Cursed with stupidity. This movie's so dumb.
The final shot of the film is the mom in prison, and then we see that Millie's spirit is in her cell, and then it goes dark.
Didn't need that.
I also didn't care for the cinematography. There's some really odd choices that I don't know are deliberate because there are a lot of shaky moments, a lot of movement, a lot of scenes are out of focus for a second and then they come into focus, and I don't think that's for any sort of effect.
I think it's maybe trying to conceal a lack of resources or...
I feel bad talking like this about the movie, but I think, it's hard to make a movie.
It
I
is.
know.
It's very hard to get projects off the ground, but also...
But words are free. Like,
Yeah.
special effects being crunchy or whatever
Butterflies are free, starring Goldie Hawn. Yes, you can't beat good storytelling, and this just isn't it. I can't for the life of me figure out why Jennifer A. Goodman insisted that she keep that character of Lindsay in there. We could have cut a whole 15 minutes if she didn't exist, and it wouldn't have done anything.
Right.
It wouldn't have... If it would have caused less confusion, like what is she there for? Why is she living in this house with this lawyer?
So the worst films for 2023 we reviewed so far, it's like halfway through the year now, are Skinamarink and...
You're just going to give them all in this review?
On a Wing and a Prayer.
Yeah, those are up there. Mm-hmm.
And I think this is worse.
I agree.
Because Skinamarink at least feels like someone had an inspired idea. And even though I hated it, I do feel like at least it felt inspired. And On a Wing and a Prayer, it was a hoot to watch because it's so damn bad. But this was not funny. It's not so bad, it's fun. It doesn't feel inspired. I'm sorry. What would you give this movie? Obviously.
I'm not sorry. It's a 0.5. This is a testament of do you want to put your name out there on something that is worse than subpar? I mean, how desperate are you to have
credits?
I
think that's the problem, is that people just want to have credits on their, I made a movie.
No.
That's what this feels like.
In fact, if I was considering giving you money for your next feature and I was checking out your previous work, I'd say, oh no.
I would give this 0.5 out of 5 as well. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.